as I started digging, a wave came up and licked me on the heels. Anyway, I'm digging, tried to get it out, didn't get it. The max tracks are in and everything. So I was like, we probably have like realistically 5 to 6 hours max before our car's going for a swim. Even while I was chopping it up, I was like, this kind of looks gross. And then we cooked it and it was like the tastiest mouthfuls of food. It's like, the best way I can describe it is like seafood bacon. Growing up, I used to be embarrassed that I like cooking. I always sort of felt like I wanted to keep that under wraps. But then when he sort of came out and everyone was like, thought it was the coolest thing. And so it was something that I became really proud of, probably because he made it cool. So I'd love to have dinner with him and have a yarn and probably tell him that.
So Nick Pearce, the chef from New South Wales, food adventurer, recipe creator with a cult following, and now road warrior. What the heck? Nick's traveling around Australia. We're going to be covering the truck build, of course, life on the road, a cookbook while traveling around Australia, the stories that the travels have already got, I'm sure, and content creation, as well as looking after a whole family while you're at it, mate. So welcome, and thanks for joining me on the couch.
Yeah, thanks, mate. Cheers. I almost missed it, like I told you before. We went for a little mission this morning trying to get some crabs, and standard procedure, I bit off more than I could chew, and we almost missed the tide coming back in. So I'm stoked to actually be here.
The first time we tried to do this, you're out and you wouldn't have stable reception. The kids were going to be running amok and you didn't want to leave your wife having to deal with that. But now you're in a little bit more of a township and you still managed to almost miss it by a Nick adventure.
Yeah.
I feel like the Nick adventure is, we'll have to dig deeper into that in a minute, but Nick's almost missed the chat because he's gone out mud crabbing, got his tide times wrong. It sounds like something I would do. And then and then almost didn't make it back in time to jump on with this call, mate. So what happened?
Yeah.
Where were you? Where are you?
So we left home, which is Cabarita Beach, northern New South Wales. And what are we now? So 7 months into a year trip around Oz. And we went around the bottom, so around through Victoria, South Oz, up the west coast, and we're now up in Broome. So the mother-in-law flew in. We're kind of we're living it up for a little bit this week. We're just staying in a resort, but we still kind of wanted to get out and get amongst it. And this morning we thought we'd try our luck. Our first kind of creek launch with the whole family, go get some mud crabs. In my mind, it was like a 2-hour mission, go throw the pots in, get some muddies, come back, even have a cook up there, and then come and do the podcast. But long story short, we got down there later than we'd hoped for, and just the tide was just pushing out so quick. And then we're out there with another mate, and we just said, I reckon we should start heading back to leave us with plenty of time. By the time we got at the river mouth, there was like this much water, so it was better to be kind of pinning it and just drawing a little bit of water. But we just hit this sludgy patch, and I literally dragged my mum. I was like, just pushing mud there for a bit to make sure we got back in the creek. So another 10 or 15 minutes and I wouldn't be sitting here. But it's kind of like, that is a really good just sum up of like what this trip has been like so many new experiences for me. But that's also what I love. Like, we just wanted a all-in family adventure. And we found it. So even something as small as that, if your first time in these areas and doing things and you just want to give everything a crack, but there's so many variables, and if it's not your locality, you're doing something for the first time. And this morning was a new place. This morning was just one of those perfect little reminders that, you can't muck around with the tides. And if you're somewhere way more crocky, that would be obviously a much more hectic scenario with the kids on board and stuff. So
100%.
It's a good little reminder that we're coming into like that really big tidal country. So I'll take that lesson.
So that's the lesson that you're currently living right now today.
Yeah.
But before getting into jumping on the road for the first time not very long ago in a setup that was brand new to yourself, give us a little bit of background about you, the family, and what's led you to do this amazing adventure.
Yeah, look, that's a great question. It's something that I have always been really interested in doing things outdoors, and particularly working in food. I've worked in and owned cafes and a coffee roasting business. and a pizza restaurant. And I think when you dig deeper into the food source and how our food system works, like all the best meals I've had generally have been from like either catching things and having them fresh. And that was something for me that I started really getting in touch with and loving. And then it was something I wanted our family to experience as well, particularly with young kids starting school. I think that first year of school gave us, a bit of a snapshot into what the next 13 years could look like if you would just sort of jump in the school system and just get into that and them building their friendship group. So I just had this moment about 6 months into last year where I was like, I just feel like the time for us is now. We both have flexible jobs. I was doing like content creation and my wife has a podcast as well. And just that flexibility, being able to sort of up and go, it's still a massive effort in terms of like organizing everything. But yeah, I just had this yearning for like, we weren't ready to sort of jump on that bandwagon just yet. And much to probably your dismay, I think I rang you and said, I need a car sorted and we're leaving in 5 months.
How I remember that was, this is what I've got. I'm going to build this. I'm going to put a boat on the roof. I'm going to have all this weight. I got a massive caravan about to pick up down south. And I'm like, whoa.
Yeah,
just,
no,
just wait a little bit.
Actually,
let's talk about this a little bit more detail and get you into something that's actually going to get you around the country in one piece. And
yeah,
we'll get
100%.
into the build in a second. But yeah, that's exactly how it happened. Called me last minute and we had to make stuff happen, didn't we? That's what I'm good at.
Yeah. But I mean, we've been inspired too. Like, I know you working with Justin from Trip in a Van. Like, we've watched plenty of their videos. Some other friends of ours live on a yacht, and just seeing those ways of life really inspire me. And we just wanted, that adventure. So that was something that it was really motivating for us, seeing people living this live and experience Australia as well. I think was such a big motivation for us. Which my folks did for me when I was younger. We didn't sort of do the same sort of trip, but, I didn't go overseas until I was 18 and I saw all these places. And at the time, I probably wished I was going to Bali and playing with fireworks and things like that. But in hindsight now, it definitely shapes the person that you become. And that's something that we wanted to do for our kiddos too. So.
No, very good. Yeah, and that's bloody awesome. And it is people like Justin and Beck and Trip in a Van, their whole crew. We've obviously got Chris and Miriam, which is a whole different dynamic as no kids traveling with them. And hearing how people are using these trucks in all different ways, shapes, and how often you can get out, whether it is a big lap, whether it is an actual work truck, whether it's just a weekend away. It's cool to see all of these different dynamics and all the different people's ways of and stories themselves on how they're using our builds, which is amazing.
For sure.
You're like another chef that we're close to in this group as well. And I don't know whether I like following you on Instagram or not like following you, because I always end up hungry and I'm actually bloody starving right now. So
yeah, me too, for what it's worth.
Yeah, okay. So you've just had that snap. This is the right time in our life to jump on the road. If there's no better time than now, let's see what we need to do to make it happen. What's the sort of what have you left behind back home that you've missed most in these first 7 months traveling around for the year?
Yeah, it's something I think about a lot. And I think, to be honest, if it were up to me, I'd consider doing 2 years. I think when you hit the road and you have all these plans, and I put a lot of pressure on myself to do research as to where we wanted to go and things we didn't want to miss out on and stuff. But you just realize the slower you go, well, at least for our family, the more you get to really like melt into a place and meet some crew to link up with and go and do things. Whereas for some people, they do like having that, checkbox moving from place to place and do all the things. But I think for me, the experiences I really love is to feel like you're set up in a place. You can have those lay days where you don't do much. But what I find happens is the longer you stay in a place, you end up meeting crew and tapping into like what people are doing locally. And like for me, a really good example of that is someone offered for us to stay at their place in Port Lincoln. And just, I think the staying at their house was probably the highlight of the trip, because we went fishing with her dad, who was like an old ab diver, and he took us out. We like bagged out on Nanagai and King George whiting, and hearing his stories just about the area, you know, from living above and below the water. He was just such a character. And that for me is one of the highlights of the trip, is like meeting these local people and their friends. And then just the generosity of the Australian spirit it has blown me away, and something I didn't even think about on the trip. So yeah, in terms of missing stuff at home, like I do miss home and the convenience, like particularly when you're considering getting out of your tinny on a mud flat and walking your family across, like, you know, midday today. I was like, man, I'd love to be sitting by the pool right now. But that's also that I just love it. Like the adventure is where the stories are, you know.
Yeah.
And our kids are going to remember that. It's also like, obviously you don't want to put your family at risk, but having that little bit of like fear, and there's so much growth from that. Like our daughter shot her first fish on this trip spearfishing, which I just never would have thought would have been something that she'd showed interest in. But we're staying over on this really remote island in WA called Dirk Hartog Island. And there's a nice reef there. It's not too deep. It's a couple meters deep, and it just holds some really good fish. And I was spearfishing there, and we'd bought a gun, and a smaller gun for my wife that Poppy could also use. Yep. And she just woke up in the morning and was like, I really want to go spearfishing. And I was just like, we've got to lean into it. So I took her out. I was like quite scared. There's like tiger sharks and stuff there, and she's a little snack pack. But we just thought we'd cruise, and she shot a blue bone. And the flopper didn't engage, like the end of the spear. So it sort of come off. Anyway, she was a bit devo. Next morning, woke up, wanted to go spearfishing again. And we got straight back out there, and she shot her first fish, like obviously with me helping her. And I went down and grabbed the fish, and we got her and the fish back in the boat pretty quick, smart. But yeah, just something I never would have thought we'd be able to do together. And yeah, there's just hundreds of those moments that are happening. And so, that's awesome. That's just things that I could never have expected. So I think because you have to be so present, because there's so much going on, I have found the moments I miss home, to be honest, is when I come into towns and we're like resetting the van and doing the water, cleaning the car, and it just feels like you're pushing shit uphill. Mm-hmm. They're the moments I miss home, because then you start missing your mates and the convenience of everything. But most of the time that only lasts a few days, and then we're sort of back out there adventuring again. And you sort of don't have, getting a new memory, and you don't have time to think about anything else because you're so absorbed in it, which has been awesome. But yeah, in terms of like admin and the amount of sort of content I thought I'd be able to do on this trip, you realise, particularly not in like a sexist way, but if you're the male and you had take on those driving and all of that safety sort of things, making sure like the boat, which is behind me, is attached to the roof. Mm-hmm. All those sorts of things. There's a huge amount of mental load that that you take on, and that's probably something I'm massively underestimated, I reckon.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting for me, like when we first started Big Dog Builds, when Cam jumped on the road for 2 years full time in a Ram, hence Cam Ram, and him checking in with me daily to start the growth of Big Dog Builds was exactly that. He's like, if it's just me driving a car, I can drive for 14 hours straight. By the time you have a big caravan on the back, a boat on the roof with the whole family, it's like it's draining on the body. You're thinking, you're concentrating, you're wondering how much fuel you got, where the next stop is, if you're going to get there, and the tires are all the things that your brain's currently ticking over with. And it's interesting to hear that coming back on you. Now that you've hit the road, you're like, oh, I don't actually have 24 hours in the day. A lot of it's taken up, and I'm wasted. So, but I knew it was interesting to hear your reply about missing home and also your favourite bits so far on the road. I think that's sort of the proof's in the pudding there. If you've owned coffee rotisseries, pizza shop, and then the cafes, obviously the social life is your happy place. You love having people around, so it's no wonder why when you get to settle down, form a little bit of a crew in different townships or at someone's place, and have that connection with more people around you is where your happiness comes, which is really cool. And then bringing the food element into that, from what I see through your socials and watching stories, it's the community cook up, it's getting the crew together and enjoying the the fruits of the labor of going out and spearfishing and getting that fish and getting that lunch. So it's cool to see, like you said, the whole cycle. It's catching it to cooking it with good people is where you're happy by the looks of it, which is amazing
It
to
is,
see.
yeah, you hit the nail on the head for sure. Like that's food for the soul. And yeah, I've definitely realized on this trip that I prefer that shared experience. Like I loved also going out fishing solo. That's a completely different experience altogether. But yeah, having that shared experience, and particularly with people who love their local area, and yeah, there's just something about tapping into that is so cool. And then all eating together and hopefully giving them something back by way of like a really good meal.
Yeah.
It's like they've sort of shared their local spots with you, and then you can return the favor by cooking them an epic feed. And yeah, you just feel that sort of relationship build so quickly because you're both kind of bringing something to the table as well. So no, we've loved
It's awesome.
those experiences. Yeah.
So speaking of being drained while driving, the setup, it's a big setup, but you're about to do it in a Ram 1500, I believe, when we first started chatting.
Yeah.
You're now in a Ram 2500. You step from a tub rack into a MITS alloy canopy. You got the 4.5 ton van on the back, so it's a decent sized setup. And you'd be a whole lot more drained if you're doing it in the wrong setup. And that's just me saying it how it is. If you're in that Ram 1500, you would have been overweight, would have been illegal, you would have been shitting yourself probably even more. You might have even snapped the chassis, which happens a lot on those lighter trucks that are loaded up. Even though it says you can do it on paper, doesn't mean you should. So we'll get into a little bit of truck talk and talk about the setup. So
I've learnt a lot.
You came to me and put a bit of trust in. You sort of had a rough budget in mind, but it was also about the family's safety when you hit the road and you wanted to be comfortable, safe. You ticked the boxes of you didn't know what necessarily all the parts were at the time. You wanted to make sure you're safe on the road, make sure you get around Australia in one piece, can drag the van around with you, which is your home while you're on the road. And so we ticked the right boxes, I believe. I hope it's all running well. I haven't heard any massive disaster stories, which is great.
No.
But we went for the suspension kit, which was my recommended sort of minimum pack. We put a hidden winch in the front bar. We put some good lights on it. It's ready to tow the van with the airbags in the rear end. Like, tell me, what's your favourite bit about the build itself, and what you wish you had on top?
Yeah, so I came in super novice, like in terms of like I'd owned 4 drives and, I do a lot of hunting and things like that back home, and have always used 4 drives to get to the zones, but I've never been much of like a car guy in terms of like comparing parts. For me, it's like I wanted the right tool for the job to get me to the places I wanted to get to. So that part of it I loved, because like talking to you, it was really easy. I just sort of said, this is what's important to me, and I'm just happy for you to kind of go for it. But I think since being on the road, you can't help but not learn a lot about your car and like what works, what's working well for it. So I think one of the biggest things that I've noticed is how crucial or how awesome it is having those airbags in the back, because when we get in somewhere, the procedure for us is usually dump the van, and then if we're somewhere for long enough, which I prefer anyway, I'd rip the tinny off the roof. So suddenly you've got all that weight off the roof, you got the weight off the van. I can take some air out of the back airbags. And then just an example is like we're up at Francois Perrin National Park, and that's a really rough road, particularly getting up to the top there. And our car just ate it up. Like we had a mate with a cruiser, and then we had, I think Jake and Carly, who've been on your series before, and they had leaf springs in the back. So their back end was a lot stiffer. And I just noticed how much their back of their car was jumping around, whereas I think ours, with that suspension set up, it was just so smooth over that. And there's obviously give and take, like, for them, they can load it up a bit more because they've got those leaf springs in the back for towing. But that's where I think that was the one time where I was like, holy crap, this car handles this like so amazingly, and just ate it up. Like the speed, not that I was like trying to speed through there, but just the speed we could go that felt comfortable and didn't feel like we were going to do damage to the car or anything. It just was like, just felt so good.
That's awesome.
And that's when that's probably when I really noticed it came into came into its own. And then like on the other side, then when I put the van on and I increased those airbags in the back to give it that little bit of stiffness, they're the things that I've really been noticing, like having that flexibility to like turn it into just a 4-wheel drive car to take on the tracks. Even say when we went over to Dirt Hartog Island, that's a notoriously bad tracks, but being able to get that weight off the roof, and then your car's suddenly so much lighter in terms of what it, you know, could handle on paper, but it just eats it up because it's dumped all that weight off. And yeah, we feel safe. And I think that'd be the biggest thing for me is like the suspension it sounds weird to say my favorite bit's the suspension, but just in seeing how other cars handle that experience, it really does feel safe. We've got that clearance. Obviously, it's so comfortable, and we've got that third seat in the front as well that, like, my wife's Soph's mum here at the moment, and so all three of us can sit across the front.
Yeah, that's great.
And today we hit the corrugations with the boat on the roof, and it just eats it up, you know. So
Yeah.
I would say, yeah, the airbags and the suspension compared to how even my 1500 used to handle and the 2500 stock, it would just be night and day. So
yeah,
and that has allowed us to get into those zones that, you know, often the worst roads take you to the best places, in my opinion, because there's less people and they're more remote, and like that's what really gets me going. And hearing other people's experiences saying that's the worst road ever, and we were like, that was sweet, you know. I think that all comes down to the suspension and how the car rides and handles that stuff, you know.
That's good. And if you wish you had one extra thing on the Ram or slightly different sort of build, what would that be, do you reckon? I think we might have covered this in a previous call.
Yeah, I think about this a lot, but like obviously I've been so happy with what we've got. The biggest one for me would be getting the light bar off the roof for driving and having driving lights on the front. There's been a few.
We didn't do the bar, we just put the light up on top. Yeah, gotcha.
Yeah, so there's been a few scenarios where it's like no moon, it's really dark, and you're really relying on that light. And particularly if your windscreen's in a dusty place, I noticed that light reflection off the bonnet can make it really hard to drive.
Yeah.
And it was funny when we're driving roads and it was really clean and the car's clean and the light bar's clean and everything. It's like it lights everything up. It's amazing. But when you start hitting those dirt roads and you're getting like more particles and stuff in front of you, having that reflection off the bonnet sort of is a bit counterintuitive. So
and how
I
it
would
hits
say
the particles in the air as well, like salt spray or rain, or the light lights it up. So that's a really interesting one. I forgot about the setup on the front with just the hidden winch cradle. We haven't done any really good lights down low. So that's really interesting to hear. And I do say that to a lot of customers. If you're wanting the best light output, the benefit of the roof rack with the lighting set up there, it acts as a bit of a wind deflector as well as a light bar on all of the platforms. But then if you want good lights, there's nothing better than a few spotties on a front bar or some lights down a bit lower, so you're not getting that interference off the vehicle itself or off the particles in the air. And
I would probably still go with both.
The two.
Yeah. That's I'd be going, if I could switch them and have both up there, because like sometimes having that big spread's really handy, and then sometimes even when you're parked up and you're turning that on to do some stuff, it's really handy. And like on that same thing, the side lights have actually been so much more handy than I ever anticipated as well. Either for sometimes doing stuff at night, like we try not to night drive ideally with the fan, but every now and again you'll be like, you know, we could just push on for a few more hours and get there. And in a lot of these off-grid type sites, it's so hard to see where the sites are at night to pull into. But if you've got that little bit of side light, you can see where your tyres on the van and that are going. And it's actually saved us a couple of times. We pulled in at 9:30 p.m. to Nalu, which our setup from front to back is 10 metres. That is the worst place like ever that you can pull in. Luckily, I chatted to a guy and he's like, I think site 17's over there, and we ended up figuring it all out. But without those side lights, we were definitely in a bit of strife. And it was Origin night, so everyone had a bit of a gutful. So we had some people watching on. Yeah.
That's gold. Yeah. With the setup, I think I've seen you run out of fuel in the socials, but what's the the downplays or the non-fun times of life on the road and the hard lessons learnt?
Yeah, oh mate, we have had so many that I could list. And like, so I'll give you our first one. Like, this is the very first day that we were leaving. I blew a fuse putting the boat back on the roof, which was a bit of a use and error. But I was just sort of playing around with it, and I was stop starting as it was going up, which in hindsight wasn't the best idea.
Yeah.
Anyway, I blew that fuse. So we had a bit of a kerfuffle, planning on leaving at 5 a.m. and had to get a new fuse, get that swapped out, and then sort of keep going. But yeah, we were planning on driving to Comboyne from home, and a mate has an avocado farm up there, and it's really small country roads. I previously had a 25-foot center console, so I was pretty comfortable towing things and moving them around. Anyway, we bypassed the turnoff, and my wife Sophie's like, "Oh, that turnoff was back there, but it was going to add half an hour for us to go down and turn around." I was like, "I'm just going to turn it around on a country road." Anyway, I pulled into this guy's driveway, and I didn't realize the grass either side, there was like a big gutter underneath his driveway. So I've pulled into the driveway and then gone to reverse out, and I wasn't sort of looking at my tyres. We were pretty cooked and just wanted to get there. Yeah. And I dropped my rear right wheel into this gutter, and it just went clunk, and the wheel was free spinning, and the front of the caravan was like in the tarmac. And I was across 2 lanes of a country road, which didn't feel that busy, but it pretty quickly feels busy when you're blocking both lanes.
Yeah.
Anyway, all these people pull up. Someone was like, they actually jumped to action so quickly. No one was being very judgmental. They were just like, everything looks shiny as, and they're like, "You guys aren't from around here, are you?" Anyway, someone jumped on and winched the van out of the way to get it straight on the road so people could pass. So they're reversing with the winch and the jockey wheel on there. And then someone's sort of given me a winch forward just to get that traction on that other tyre. But when we sort of did it, I was so worried that it was going to be a trip ender on day one because of where the car was sitting. Like, I was worried about the axles and everything. But anyway, we got out of there. We got to our mate's place. And that's probably one of the worst, to be honest. Day one, I just was so worried that I'd done something that, it was going to mean we sort of couldn't keep rolling. So that's right up there. But yeah, we've had everything, like with chipped propellers and had to limp home in the boat. We've had to, we've had some deep boggings, like one at Bremen Bay was probably one of the worst, where our daughter was asleep and we just thought it'd be fun to go for a bit of a drive on the beach. And I had the drone up looking for salmon. And my wife Soph was sort of trying to find some harder sand, and we ended up on like a bit of a 45 angle down towards the beach.
Yeah.
And I've sort of said to her, like, head back up, and she's turned sharply up, and it's just dug like the deepest bogging we've had. And I just sort of jumped to action, started digging out the car, thinking that, I was worried about the tide, because as I started digging, a wave came up and licked me on the heels.
Oh no.
And I was properly like, all right, this is not ideal. Anyway, I'm digging, tried to get it out, didn't get it. The max tracks are in and everything. And then I was like, I just need to stop for a second, check the tides. And sure enough, the tide was going out.
Yeah.
So I was like, we probably have like realistically 5 to 6 hours max before our car's going for a swim. And so we dug it out really, really properly. And then to make matters worse, I've dug it out, like heaps of clearance under the diff and everything. I'm like, we're going to do it once, we're going to do it right, because there was no one else around. Anyway, I see this guy driving up in a Land Cruiser up the track, and I'm like, awesome, someone's going to come give us a hand and just give us a tug out. Anyway, he pulls up and he's like, "Oh, I was looking for a wave." And I was like, "Oh, mate, I wouldn't drive any further. It's so soft." And he's like, "Oh, thanks for the heads up." And I was like, "Oh, any chance you can just give us a tow out?" And he's like, "Yeah, let me just turn around." I was like, "Oh, I wouldn't turn around. I'd probably just pull us out backwards."
Yeah.
And he's like, "No, sweet, I'll turn around." Anyway, he just comes in next to us to do a Yui and just straight in, like straight in next to us. And I'm just like, it went from bad to worse. Anyway, funniest part of the whole thing is I ended up getting us out of there, and then I gave him a hand to get him out. Both of us kind of limped back, but yeah, we've
Couldn't
had
let
so
a Land
many.
Cruiser rescue you, mate.
I know, yeah. But we've had so many of those scenarios, and none of them have ruined the trip, or should I say yet? But I think, yeah, touch wood. But I think they're all the things that, like, they're the scenarios that if you're a novice, you don't want to get into. But until you sort of learn those things, like I now know like the sand we can drive on, the tire pressures. I know like to jump out and walk the tracks. A lot of the time, if there's no tire tracks there, it's probably for a good reason.
Yeah.
And just a bunch of those things now that like pop into my head before I go into anywhere, which beforehand didn't. I was like, how good is this beach? Like, whoa, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
So
it's just that experience while learning the hard way. That's it.
For sure. And like, of course you could stay on the main road and never go into these places. But if you're really looking for, if you're looking for the adventure and to really get amongst it, which I love, I'm not sure if my wife feels the same with some of the situations I've put us in, but, I try to like take educated risk, I guess you'd call it, where I know sort of what we're signing up for and what could happen. And if it's not it's not a full deal breaker, I usually go for it.
Well, we'll get back into a little bit more about you. What happened back in 2019? Sophie's inbox exploded from your Instagram success. How did that change your approach to getting into content creation?
Like I got into content creation basically because my wife's podcast was going really well, and she had a management company that was looking after her podcast that had seen some of the food that we were cooking, and there was a lot of interest in our recipes. And basically the way it kind of began was that Soph started putting out recipes that I was cooking because her followers were asking for them.
Gotcha.
And to be honest with you, at the beginning, I had a lot of staff across 3 different businesses that I was involved in, and it wasn't at the forefront of my mind. It was just something that we did on the side that people enjoyed, and I was kind of okay with that. At the beginning, it was like pretty much my hands, and then it sort of developed into me doing a little bit of talking on camera as I got more comfortable. But the real catalyst was a mum wrote in and said that her son had got into cooking through watching our videos.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and something just like clicked for me. It was like, it just felt like out of everything that I was doing, this could have the most purpose.
Yeah.
Which I never would have kind of thought. I think originally I was feeling a little bit like uncomfortable putting myself out there just, to whoever, I guess. And to be honest with you, it's still not something that I find easy getting on camera and I guess like self-promoting or whatever it is. I've gotten a lot better at it because I've done so much of it. And I do feel comfortable on the camera because I feel really comfortable as to what my like ethics are and what my intentions are. And I feel good about doing it because I know it can really have some great positive effects. So yeah, basically just started snowballing. Brands started reaching out saying, we'd love you to do, 3 recipes for us, or we want you to be an ambassador for 12 months or whatever it might be. And a lot of the brands that were hitting me up were brands that I loved and do love. Like my very first sponsor was Wusthof Knives.
Yep.
And they're still my main sponsor and have been on this trip as well. And they were the knives I was already using. So I was like, how good's this? Like I've literally, it seemed it can't get better than that. So, even with the way that we ended up having a chat, I think was through a relationship I had with Dometic, and they recommended chatting to you guys. And I just love meeting like-minded people in the industry, and I realised that, I have some skills and know-how that offer value to people's lives. And I think through that, also working with brands that I would already sort of be engaging with to do the things that I want to do, this year has probably been the most like aligned with myself thing that I've ever done. So it's so cool seeing people love it as well because, a lot of the stuff I did last year was what we were cooking at home. So like midweek meals and things of convenience because our kids were in school and we were living that hustle life,
Yeah.
So I have loved sort of moving from that, sharing midweek meals, to showing the adventures that I was doing sort of on the weekends and things. Now we're living that full time.
Yeah.
And just seeing how much people get around it. Some of the people I've met that have just reached out on social media to go for a fish or go spearfishing or whatever it might be. That's been the coolest part for me is I feel like I'm living and breathing who I am also as online. So that I am living the dream, I guess you could say, even though,
Living the dream.
it's not all, it's not all like rainbows and whatever. Like it's hard too, but
Yeah.
it's the most fulfilling thing I've ever done in terms of like work and life, if that makes sense. Like,
Oh, that's great. That's great to hear. And tell us a bit about the cookbook. So you're writing a cookbook while traveling around Australia, is that right?
yeah. So, I think now I've been sharing recipes for the best part. What are we now? 2025. So 6 years I've been sharing recipes. I've probably on my website got, 500-600 recipes that I've done, I would say. And I've been hit up by a lot of publishers previously to do cookbooks, but I
Yep.
never felt compelled to do a cookbook that was just like how we eat at home or anything like that. Mainly just because I felt like there's so many books in that space. You can go into any shop or look online and there's 100 midweek meals books that have been released in the last, 18 months type thing. So I had always wanted to do it, always wanted to do a book. And until we sort of came up with this idea to do this trip, in my mind, I was like, I'd love to journal this trip and just like, make like something that we can look back on. So, I don't do that anyway, so I don't really know what I was thinking, but doing it in a way with a cookbook for me is like my interpretation of what a journal for me would be.
Yeah.
And I just think that other people will enjoy it too. I think it's been a lot more work than maybe what I anticipated, but
Mm-hmm.
what I'm loving is it's 100% me. So I've decided to self-publish it. A lot of publishers I spoke to, their like methodology of doing it is like you do the recipes, they then get shot in a studio. You have someone sort of edit and recipe test. There's a real process to it,
Mm-hmm.
and that process doesn't really work for how we wanted to do it. So for me, it's like I'm shooting all the recipes while we're on the road.
Yeah.
I'm shooting, taking all the pictures myself with like a proper camera that I've learnt to use. We're getting epic drone shots, which I've been learning on the go, but really stoked with how everything's coming out. And it is literally just the food we're cooking. And like I do put a bit of pressure on myself in regions to try and find ingredients. Like mud crabbing this morning, maybe not the best idea, but we've got stuff everywhere. It's been epic, and obviously a lot of it's been really seafood based. But as we move up into Gibb River, we're going to do like a little bit with like buffalo and some deer and some things like that too. And the whole idea of the cookbook is I would like anyone to be able to pick this cookbook up and recreate the recipes and just sub out the ingredients. So like let's say, for example, in South Oz, I did like I did a squid nasi goreng.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just showing a recipe, so how you can make nasi goreng, and you can just sub the squid out for chicken or for beef,
Yeah.
and make those skewers with something else. So the recipes are not going to be like you have to be on the road to cook them. They're
Yeah.
things that we eat at home that we've recreated. We made like mackerel pot stickers the other day that we did with Spanish mackerel, but you
Okay.
could use prawns, chicken, pork, any of those things. So the recipes will be written out in a way that it gives you substitutes if it's not your flavor. Because it's like my whole goal would be to like encourage people to maybe step outside and go for a little family adventure and catch a fish and bring it back and recreate something that seems really familiar. I don't
Mm-hmm.
want this cookbook to be like overly technical and need a bunch of ingredients, because the reality is we're living out of a van and car.
Yeah.
So our pantry is not super stocked. So I've been keeping it pretty simple, but it's simple and delicious, and
Yeah. Nice.
most of them are quick to prepare as well. So I think the biggest difference with what this, like we're about to do a pre-release for the cookbook, the biggest difference will be that I've shot little episodes.
Mm-hmm.
So we were originally thinking of doing YouTube, but I started making these episodes, and when we watched them back, they felt so personal to our family.
Yeah.
And it's sort of, we haven't like fully lifted the veil on our like internal family life, and with the age the kids are, we didn't feel like putting that on YouTube. So
Mm-hmm.
we thought keeping those episodes in the cookbook with a QR code, and
Yeah,
if
nice.
anyone pre-buys the book, which will be that'll be launched this month,
Yeah.
then
Awesome.
people will get emails with the episodes every fortnight. and then they can sort of watch the journey of me putting together the book, and then they should have the book in their hands by mid next year, and they can sort of, sit down on a Wednesday night and watch the episodes like they would if you were following someone on YouTube, but just a little bit more personal, sort of requiring people to make that little bit of an investment, which I think will filter out people who, are just like trolls online and things like that.
Correct.
People who really,
you wouldn't get that negative aspect of someone just flicking across it and having their own opinion when the only people watching it are genuinely wanting to watch it. So
totally,
they're there for a reason.
So it's been a big undertaking, but no, I'm actually loving it. And every time I go back and watch the episodes, I'm like, whoa, we did so much that week, and see the different things we're cooking and having to think of something new to cook each week. It's like pretty exciting, to be honest.
Yeah, and with the cooking on the road, I suppose you've got all the good stuff to be able to cook, and you can cook some amazing stuff just off a simple fire on the ground. But going back to basics with some things, but what's your sort of, I don't know, thing that you had to change the most in how you would cook while on the road, if that's a thing?
Yeah, I would say, so the thing that caught me off guard was that you could, like, for so much of summer, we couldn't have fires.
Yeah.
So I had a setup thinking that we'd be cooking over the charcoal and fire, and a lot of the cookbook I thought would be that, but pretty much until we left Margaret River, we couldn't really have fires, which was, what's that, January, February, March, like April onwards, So that was a huge eye opener. So I had to get really creative, like just cooking over gas. And we also have induction as well. My preference is gas just because I like to be able to see the flame and control it. And if you're cooking something for a long time, obviously that can pull a lot of juice out of your car or van.
Yeah.
I would say probably just getting creative with like flavors and ingredients that keep for a long time, or things you can keep in your pantry.
Yeah.
And then just probably not being like, if you throw fish over the fire or something over the fire, so much of the flavor comes from cooking it that way. So I have had to be a little bit more creative with flavors and things. To make sure if you're just cooking.
What about your water situation while traveling on the road? I think that's the one resource that is the hardest one to replenish the power from the sun. And while you're driving, water, obviously, while cooking a lot and cleaning a lot, you can use a lot of it. What have you had to balance out and restrict the shower usage to make sure you got enough there for the kitchen?
Yeah. So we now carry, if we're going into a remote zone, so we can spend 2 weeks somewhere, we carry 450 in our van, which is like how our van came stock. Yep. And then we've got in the Mitts alloy canopy, we can have 100 litres of water.
Yeah.
So we've got a headboard tank and then a tank underneath.
Yep.
And then we've since bought a ram shaped water bladder. So we can get 230 on the back in the seats in between the
the footwell?
In the footwell, yeah.
Yeah, awesome.
So that
230
kind of puts us,
litre bladder inside the vehicle.
Yeah, so that puts us at 750.
Wow.
And the beauty of that is if we drop the van off, and in some places, like in the Ningaloo, there's some springs that you can fill up from.
Yeah.
So that means if I go for a run to the spring, I can get 300 in the car and just come back and top the van up, and we're nearly back to full then.
You're going to need to get the link off you for that water bladder inside the vehicle, because that's the one question I think a lot of people are going to be interested in after this chat.
Yeah, and that's the biggest game changer, I feel, is if you don't have to think too much about water and you have somewhere you can fill up with reliable water, then you can do your dishes. The same for me with cooking. I can maybe go a little bit harder and use a few different pans and do a bit more. And the water's gold, but water bladder for us has been a bit of a game changer.
Yeah, no, that's really interesting, and it's a great answer. I wasn't expecting that one, which is cool. Like, I find part of our builds as well that can be challenging is water on board right now. I've got a few plans in place for the future, whether people are in the canopy or using a tub setup in the rear. If you've got giant kids in the back, obviously that's going to be a little bit harder than some of the smaller ones that they can just pop their feet up. But it takes me back to traveling Fraser Island as a kid. We had a troop carrier with I think 8 people, 9 people on board, legs
Yeah,
over
well,
each other and all the gear in the middle. So kids these
yeah,
days in the back seat of a Ram having to lift their legs
that's
up an extra 500 mil. I think they'll be
still
right,
luxury.
eh?
They're still sweet. Yeah. I
So,
think too, like the one thing I've noticed, and back to your question before about asking what you'd change on the build, is like there are I think there's not there's a lot of places you go to where you might need a water bladder, but then having too much capacity, or say your canopy taken up with like a 300 litre water tank that you might only use, for a certain few weeks of the year type thing. They're the
yeah.
things that I've been realizing that you want like the nuts and bolts of everything to operate the way that you want, but then
Hmm.
there are some really good aftermarket things that you can, take yourself from like that 100 litres that even if it's at home would be handy to have in the car
Yeah.
to that
Yeah.
300 litres, which, suddenly you really feel it in the car when you're driving and things like that.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
you don't want to be doing long distances with that in the car.
When you don't need to use
So
it. Yeah.
yeah, and then like when I don't need to use it and it's all just been pumped out, I've just rolls up and it's like stashed away and I've got a little pump and stuff. So there's ways that you can achieve what you want to without it having to be a permanent fixture. And that's a big thing that I've been learning, is that like you want the key things to be a permanent fixture that, you're going to need all the way around Oz, and you want them bolted down. But then some of those aftermarket things, if that's the difference between you going ahead with the build and not, you can sort of piece together some of these other things that'll help you achieve what you want when you are in those remote zones. So yeah, I think that's a big thing, that like obviously it's a luxury to be able to click go on everything that you want to have in a build, but there's also ways around like scaling up your water capacity and down and fuel and things like that too, if you can't sort of put all the bells and whistles on.
There you go. Very, very interesting. I like that a lot. I like that usability of being able to roll up a water tank and only use it when you need it. So you can
Yeah.
have it there, but it can be pointless 80% of the time. But that extra
Yeah,
20 is just key. So
for sure. Yeah.
what about the craziest food source or ingredient that you've picked up around the country or on the road or on the side of the road or bought? What's something crazy there?
Yeah. Oh, a couple of things come to mind. So I never my first time trying green lip abalone was going out with uh going out ab diving in Port Lincoln. So that was my first time doing that. It's not an ingredient I was kind of searching for. But I thought, when you're out with an ab diver and he asks if you want to go ab diving, like the answer's yes. So yeah, we got a fair few of them. Only one of them was size. I've actually still got it in my tray because there's such a beautiful shell. But I went back, and in Port Lincoln there's this Jarrah's sourdough, and we went and got some sourdough bread. And then he actually gave me a tip, because he used to be a chef, on like how he likes to prepare them. And he said he likes to do them kind of Asian style, cut the abalone on a 45. So I just sort of followed what he roughly said he likes to do. And Soph and I, even while I was chopping it up, I was like, this kind of looks gross. And then we cooked it, and it was like the tastiest, just mouthfuls of food. It's like, the best way I could describe it is like seafood bacon.
Hmm.
And then we did it like Asian style, honey soy, and put some spring onion, sesame oil, and like lime and spice, and had it like that. And then I sort of mopped it up with some of the sourdough as well. And that was just like, yeah, one of the meals that I didn't, even while I was cooking it, I was like, I don't know if I'm going to like this.
Yeah, wow.
That really blew me away. So, but that whole area, like the oysters, the scallops, the whiting, nanagai, like there's so many good things around there. But that was one ingredient that was never on my list of things that I thought I'd try. And then again, when we were in Margaret River, I went down with a mate to the cliffs in front of his house. And he normally goes when there's no swell and no tide, but we're only there for a few days. So he's like, we have to get you one. And they get roabs. So they're like these tiny little abs there. And we got some of those, and they were just unbelievable. But there was literally like 6-foot sets coming in and then jumping in between the sets. And then we would like yell
I
out.
remember seeing this on Instagram.
And I was
yeah.
like, get out of the water. And then he sort of knew where they were. So he got a couple. And I jumped in after and had a crack, and I just couldn't see a thing. Like, he must have just been feeling around for them. And then we went back and I cooked them up, and I made some like sourdough flatbread. So it's basically a pizza dough, put that over, and then some of the samphire, which is like the weed that's down in the hills there. It's like a little succulent, and we put some of that over too, just salty pops. And that was amazing. So I'd say, yeah, both those species of abalone, trying them, like I would, if I was in those zones, I'd be targeting those with how delicious they are for sure. Yeah.
What about
Have you ever tried it?
No, I'm not a big one for seafood, which is quite funny.
Yeah.
Unless I'm very drunk, and then sometimes I love it. But
I might be able to turn you around. I'll have to cook you up.
Yeah, you might have to cook me that what did you call it? Seafood bacon.
Yeah. Well, that's the best way I would describe it. It's a good way to sell it, though. You probably like bacon, right?
What about the flip side to that? Obviously, there's a lot of coastal sort of chats today, sticking around the coast, doing the outside lap, thinking about animals in the scarce environment of the middle of Australia. Has kangaroo been on the menu, for example?
It will be for sure. Like back home, me and a mate, we take people out 4 times a year. We run a thing called Wild Food Expeditions, which is all about like educating people on how to harvest ethically and butcher their own meat. So that's a big part of it for me. But I felt like that was a little bit low-lying fruit for me at the beginning because it was something I was already doing. Yep. So I've sort of left that for the tail end of the trip. I really wanted to like get into areas where I hadn't fished before. I got those things. But yeah, the inland versus coast thing, like I'm just through and through, like I love the coast. Yeah. Particularly for our girls, we grow up on the ocean. My daughter Poppy's getting into surfing. She's showing that bit of interest in spearfishing as well. So I think that probably just filters down from the things that we love doing. Yeah. Inland, it's getting hotter, and we're about to move into croc country, so we won't be swimming, obviously. I'm really interested to see how we go there because we're definitely like kind of more water people. I still love getting up in the mountains, but for me, it's like a weekend at a time type thing. The coast is definitely, the coast is home for us, and it was a no-brainer for us sticking to the coast as we go around.
Yeah, no, that's great. Yeah. What about, speaking of the family on the road, how have you found, is that to be expected, relationships being in each other's pocket, not having that personal time away, or with the whole family dynamic? What's been the pros and the cons, or the challenges and the good times there, I suppose?
Yeah, look, I've been really surprised. I know every relationship's different because, some people might be going on a trip around Australia and one or both of the parents work full-time in separate roles and have very separate lives, and then maybe come back together. And I know a lot of people during COVID even said, they were sick of one partner or the other being home all the time, whereas Soph and I both work in content creation now, basically. So we are home. At home, we parent 50-50 with the kids and split our work days and all of that. So we were really used to being together. I think like to be 100% honest, I was probably like a little bit concerned about us having any time, just us two, before we went. Read into that whatever you want. But I've been really pleasantly surprised. One, like I feel more connected to Soph and the kids than I have ever in my entire life. Even yesterday, Soph and I went out for dinner and we've only been gone for a couple of hours, but we miss them. So I do think there is like a real togetherness that happens by being on the road together all the time. We're both really patient, really good communicators with each other if something's kind of annoying us or whatever, and that's how we operate at home. So we've had to be a heap better at that on the road, because it's not like, you can go and take yourself out of the space, come back and say, oh, sorry, I wasn't thinking about that. You really need to be better in the moment and say like, oh, sorry, I was just, we were trying to dig ourselves out of a hole and I was feeling a bit stressed. Sorry, I probably shouldn't have spoken to you like that, or whatever it might be.
You told me to drive down there when I shouldn't have.
Yeah, totally. So, it was a concern at the beginning for sure, but I think all of us are as close as we've ever been, and that does every now and again become a bit of a pressure cooker if you got rainy days or you're stuck somewhere with wind or whatever, and people have their moments and need a little bit of space. But yeah, you just try and work out ways to do that. We haven't felt the need like we did at home to say like, Wednesday night's your night to do something, Thursday night's my night to do something, which is what we actually used to do. And then we'd have a night together as well where we'd get a babysitter. But both of us are feeling really content with just like the adventure we're on, and you know, we come back into towns like this, and even though it's great to put your feet up and sit by the pool for a little bit, we actually get to the point, even today, we're like, oh, we booked too long here, and we kind of want to get back off grid and just getting back amongst it, and you know, so yeah, it is nice to recharge the batteries. But no, to answer your question, no, we're not. We're loving it.
It's a good thing.
It's a good
more,
thing. Yeah,
more rewarding than there is challenges so far.
yeah,
which is good.
but I know.
So you go
not
inland, and
everyone
then who
finds
knows
that.
what'll happen there, eh?
Yeah, cross country and hot desert might be for a different story. But nah, we're going really good, and I know it's different for every couple. But yeah, if anything for us, it's made us all closer and care way less about like where we live and how we live, and sorry, not so much how we live, but where we live, and the things that matter to us have become so much more obvious after 7 months on the road together. That, you know, we thought we built our forever house a couple of years ago, and both of us were like, we don't really care where we live now. So
that's really cool. That's really interesting as well. Back onto a little bit of food. What's your ultimate sort of truck stop, quick pull over on the side of the road, guilty snack pleasure?
Oh, mate. Yeah, honestly, I've had to rein that in big time because I love a pie. Like mine would have to be a pepper steak pie.
Yeah, I'm one for that too.
Yeah, but as you probably know, if you have them consecutive days in a row, yeah, well, the smell in the car is usually where the worst bit. But yeah, I'd say pepper steak pie has been. I feel like I've been. I should have started a separate review page for pepper steak pies before I left because I've pretty much worked my way around half the country so far.
That's gold. So obviously, a few quick ones. Cook or clean?
Cook.
You do both?
Depends. Define clean. I've been cleaning the van and the car, and the cassette's my job. So Soph does mainly the inside of the van cleaning, but in terms of like car cleaning, boat cleaning, cassette, you know, all that sort of stuff, that lands on me.
Bit of a dream dinner guest. If you had anyone in the world to cook dinner for, who would that be?
Oh, I think it would have to be Jamie Oliver, to be honest.
There you go.
Yeah, I feel like growing up, the thing I love, like I don't love a lot of his new stuff, and like he's got his own missions and whatever, but growing up, I used to be embarrassed that I like cooking. Mm-hmm. And then when Jamie Oliver came out, he like made cooking cool. And I think for a guy who loved cooking, I always sort of felt like I wanted to keep that under wraps. But then when he sort of came out and everyone was like, you know, thought it was the coolest thing. And I felt like I could like vocalize that that's what I love doing. And even to my mates, like, you know, I was the captain of my rugby team at school, but like on a lot of weekends, I'd have my mates over and I'd make you know, dinner or barbecue for them all, and then we'd all go out together. So it was something that I was really became really proud of, probably because he made it cool. So I'd love to have dinner with him and have a yarn and you know, probably tell him that.
No, that's great. That's awesome.
Yeah.
I'm actually the cook in my family as well, but what I'm better at than cooking is talking. And then usually when I talk and I'm cooking out camping, I'll forget about the cooking, and that's where it all turns pretty bad pretty quickly.
Oh, you know, that's classic.
The burnt bacon, the burnt sausages.
What's your go-to camp meal? Have you got a go-to cook up?
My go-to is just a roast. I love a good roast everywhere I go.
Nice.
And because I think it is one of those things where I can put it on, and I'm very rustic and raw as well. You know, there's no measurements, there's no this. It's all cooked by the gut feeling. Even the timing of a roast. That's one thing. It doesn't matter where I'm cooking it, how I'm cooking it. For some reason, I can nail a roast, and whether it's a medium rare, you know, beef, or if it's just well done and perfect pork. That's my little thing. But until if it's the quicker sort of stuff, that's where I'm terrible. Just the basic snags. I cooked some on the weekend just gone, and the kids still give me shit for it every time. So that's
classic. I'm pretty sure there's a Bluey episode about that. Every dad burning the snags.
Oh yeah, it's great. So I cooked some bacon once on it was actually a filming trip years ago, and we literally came outside the caravan, and the bacon sitting on the grill was like black patties. It was hilarious.
Oh,
so
that's too funny.
I still see a friend group there, and that's the discussion that gets brought up every time. But that's the joys of talking too much and am easily distracted and going off and kicking the football and forgetting about the roast.
I've done the same thing on this trip, and it is usually things you care less about, you know, like the snags or reheating a burrito or something like that.
Yeah. So that's it. What's next for Nick Pearce? More books, bigger truck builds,
Mate,
another lap around Australia?
Yeah, look, we're going to get home and we'll probably sell this setup because our eldest daughter really wants to go back to school. I think we'll go home for, maybe a year, but we'll definitely do we're going to do a lap again, no doubt about it. I would also love to do one by water at some point in a boat. I'm sort of chipping away at Soph. She does get a little bit seasick, but I think she's coming to terms with the fact that might be on the cards, and that if the kids are a little bit older, she'd be open to it if it was planned out really well. So that's something that really appeals to us. But I don't really know. I'm just going to try and really enjoy the rest of this back half of this trip and get over the East Coast. And there's heaps of crew we're going to catch up with over on the East Coast and do some fun little adventures in their zones. We're going to get up to the Cape as well and got a couple of people we're going to link up with up there, which I'm really excited about. So yeah, I'm just super focused on this book. I'm going to get home mid-Jan. I'm going to recook all the recipes just to make sure that, the method and ingredients are all like fully locked down. Because like when you're on the road, obviously write it down and everything, but it is pretty loose, some of the meals that I'm cooking. So they photograph really well. I just want to make sure that if someone's paying good money for a book, that the recipes all work. So pretty much that'll take us up to the end of Feb, and then it will go to print. We'll have the book mid-year. And yeah, my brain's not really looking past that at all. I think it will be great to get home, catch up with mates. I haven't been doing as much surfing as I'd love to be doing. So that is one thing I'm missing for back home, is like being in the ocean every day in that aspect. So yeah, I don't really know, but definitely we'll be doing another build at some point. We'll be doing another lap of Oz by road, I dare say, again, because there's a lot of corners we haven't got to, like Tassie and East Arnhem Land and some places like that seem really spectacular. And then, I reckon we'll be doing a lap by water, but probably maybe 5 or so years, I reckon.
No, that's awesome. And then where can people, how do people follow you? How do we stay track on the content, the recipes, the gear you're using? You talked about the knives earlier, for example. I'm sure there's lots of other things that people are interested in. Tell me about that.
Yeah, for sure. So I'm pretty much all in on Instagram. So my handle is Recipearce. So it's at RECI and then my last name Pearce, PEARCE. I am on the other platforms, TikTok and stuff, but since we left, and because I'm uploading everything, I haven't actually uploaded anything to any of the other platforms. So best place to find me is on Instagram. I like chat to everyone if they message me. I'm not as available as what I'd normally be because we're on Starlink, but anytime I get it, if someone sort of asks a question or whatever, I'm on there. And then, in the next month or potentially when this goes up, I might already have the pre-sale live for the cookbook. So if anyone wants to follow along and watch the episodes, in real time of me putting the book together, you can pre-order it and then they'll just drop into your email and you'll be able to watch those. And if you've, say, missed one of the emails, there'll be a back catalogue of the videos in there you can watch right from the beginning. And me even talking about crossing, getting the van across those 2 lanes and the country road. But we filmed all the chaos and all the cook-ups. So it is a pretty fun watch. And like, I'm my own worst critic. I hate putting stuff out if I don't think it's, if it's worth putting out there. So I think people watching that will have a good laugh and they'll be able to really feel like they're in some of those moments with us. That's probably the main place. Just Insta. I've got a website that you can see all my existing recipes on there, and that'll be where the pre-sale is. So,
awesome. Well, that's amazing. Well, this is Nick Pearce, everyone. He's the chef from writing the cookbook around Australia in the Ram, built here at Big Dog Builds, living the dream. He has plenty of water on board, so those out remote, if you see him, he's got 750 litres apparently. Wishes he had a little bit more light in usable areas. I've got some spare water. You put your flag up, and then that's it. He's good at getting stuck, good at getting into precarious locations. But if you don't get off the beaten track and adventure, you're never going to get to those spectacular places. So thanks for joining me today, mate. Having a chat. I look forward to following the journey. I'm definitely going to sign up for that one, and look forward to receiving the cookbook at the end, watching the videos throughout, and seeing if I can replicate some of those non-seafood recipes myself at home or out on the road.
Yeah, epic. Yeah, cool, mate. Thanks heaps for building us such a good truck, man. It's been awesome.
Well, guys, if you like this video, check this one out here. If you want to see these trucks boogie down the beach, follow Nick Pearce and also watch these ones here as well.